Welcome again to Surprised to Be Here. I'm Sarah Coleman. I'm here with my friend and um, extremely talented, kind, and um, very successful in your career, photographer Marie Tomanova. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, Hi.
Hi.
How
Thank you
are
for the
you?
sweet words. That was
Aw.
nice. Surprised to be here.
I am also very surprised to be here, right? It's like, hey, you want to come on my
It's like,
podcast?
now I do podcast. Amazing. I
Yeah,
love
just
that.
throw things at the wall and see what happens.
That's what I love about you.
I
You know,
know.
always doing some cool stuff.
So we met when I was working on the Fendi
That's right.
collaboration.
What year was that?
2021.
Okay.
And I was so nervous about like the photo shoots there was a series of photo shoots, and I remember I was like, at the first one there was like a lot of hair, a lot of makeup. It was like very intense, and I remember having a really it was very intense, and like overwhelming for me. And then when the photo shoot with you was scheduled, you walked in, and it was like I felt like immediately just like calm, and like it was such a it was very unexpected. And do you think that that ability that you have to like put people at ease and to sort of create a very calm environment, do you think that that was part of the reason why photography and like shooting sort of you do a lot of like portraits. Um does that drive a lot of why you chose to do that, like your connection with people? Does it have anything to do with sort of
Not really, but I
Yeah.
think it's a big part why I like photography, and I'm actually good at it
Yeah.
because I am good with people. But for me, it's interesting to hear your perspective on that day, because when I was walking in, I'm slightly nervous before every shoot. I've been now taking portraits of people for, I don't know, 8 years or 7 years, and I'm still nervous every single time because, I feel a lot of responsibility, and it's just like, it's a process. So I was walking in the beautiful building to your apartment, and as soon as the door opened, it's the first time we are meeting, and first time I'm seeing the space, and I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. First of all, you were super sweet, and then the place looked just like lots of art, lots of personality in it, and that's what I love when I walk into places and meet people for the first time. And for photography, that's just lots of improvisation happening right there simultaneously at that point. It's not like, again, it's not like I have hair person, makeup person, whole set, studio, everything is super controlled, the light is controlled. I mean, I can work like that, but I just don't prefer that. I really like the challenge of meeting people and seeing who they are in their own space. And I had such a great time like connecting with you like that, and we chatted for forever. And
I think photography and the being, a photographer right now, I think that's like a very popular career, and
we're overwhelmed with images. There's so many images everywhere.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a photographer, you're still taking pictures.
Right.
Yeah,
Everyone
everybody
is
is a photographer,
right.
essentially. And I think that there's certain fatigue, with images that we look at and consume every day, all the time. So, how do you make that a career?
Right. But I feel like you've made it a very, like a point to sort of have, you've published books. You have 3 now.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And I feel like you do a lot of sort of like solo shows. You focus a lot on like the presentation of your work and keeping it very, I don't know, it's like you have it's obvious that you have like a great respect for like what you do, you know,
I
and
kind
sort
of
of
see it as a two separate paths almost, like the artwork and the commercial work,
right,
which, very, I mean, in my work, it kind of, mingles together somewhat, but it's really just kind of two different worlds, the fashion and the art, and they don't really love each other necessarily, but they, get inspiration from each other. But if you're too much in the fashion, they don't really approve of you in the art, etc.
right,
So it's kind of a tricky situation. And I've been trying to just see where I am with it, And
yeah,
for me, I think the art career is where my heart is the most, because I love doing books and exhibitions, and just kind of, it's a whole different approach to photography. When I do a fashion shoot or commercial work, it's like, you get the notice 2 weeks before it needs to be done. Then it's hectic 2 weeks. Then you shoot. Then there is, a big team of people involved, which is amazing. I actually really like working with people, but
yeah,
it's very fast, and, it just happens so quick, and then it's over.
right.
Meanwhile, with the art, I work on projects sometimes for a year or two. It's
And
much
it's like much more
slower,
personal.
much more personal, more just about me. Nobody else is involved. It's, a slow process of thinking about it, shaping it, working on it, So it's a whole different kind of mindset. And I like both. And I'm really happy that I can do both.
Yeah.
Um, because somehow if I would be only working, I don't like the loneliness. It's like I'm a painter originally, and you just sit alone in the studio and paint. So it's very solitary work, which in the photography art projects could be like that too. But I very often do portraiture, so I bring people in, and it's a very much a collaboration. But somehow the commercial work is huge team, so many people, everybody has opinion, everybody wants something, there's a client. So
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing. I love both.
And a lot of your art is focused, it's self-portraiture.
Yes, I started with self-portraiture, and that's also,
After when did you start?
I started when I'm actually,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
from
yeah.
Czech Republic.
Yeah, we're
Today is February 7th, and exactly 12 years ago, I landed in New Jersey,
wow.
which is where I somehow landed in New Jersey, at Newark with my one luggage, and went to the agency because I came here as an au pair after I finished my master's degree as a painter, because there was not much of a career in
Yeah.
Czech Republic as a painter. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to go to US. So yeah, 12 years ago, exactly. I landed in Jersey, had no idea what I'm doing, didn't know anybody here, didn't know what's
one.
ahead of me. I was here at a training with the agency for like a week, and then I was sent to North Carolina, where I had my first host family for a year, and then upstate New York for another year, and then I just moved to the city because I totally fell in love. But, at the beginning, 12 years ago, this time, I would just be like, new here and just like, wow, just,
Wow.
super lost, but super excited.
Yeah. I mean, that's like
And still
that's
here.
like
Which is good.
yeah, I mean, that's a pretty intense like move to just make
Yeah.
by yourself.
I really thought, I remember my best friends in Czech drove me to the airport in Vienna, because that's closer to my home actually than flying from Prague. And I was thinking, my ex-boyfriend was there hugging me, and it's like, you'll be back in half a year. Or I was like, maybe the year the most. And then, it's been 8 years before I was able to go back home after I came here. So it was really a long time. But to tell you how I started photography is actually, it was I would say lucky coincidence, but it really was a destiny looking at it back.
Yeah.
When I moved to upstate New York for the second year as an au pair, I would be coming to the city every weekend, and just going to the Metropolitan Museum, because it, seemed like a good place to start exploring New York. And I met Thomas Beachdale, who's my husband now, but, has been working with me on photos and shows for a long time. So I met him my second week in New York. It was meant to be.
I know
At the
you were
Metropolitan
looking at
Museum.
a painting, right?
I know. I was looking at a favorite painting from Gauguin, and he said hi, and I was like, is this guy in a jacket and a tie and glasses? I always dated losers, so he wasn't one of those. But
It's always nice when you
I
switch.
didn't really talk to him because, I don't know, he wasn't my type. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But then I saw him walking through the museum and giving a talk, and I joined, which was amazing that he let me, and I was just really blown away with his knowledge and the way how he was able to present his knowledge and make talk about art just so exciting and interesting. And I studied art, and for me it was a lot of hours of it's like reading a book that's not really interesting because it's too intellectual or something. But he was able to just give you this story of the art in a way that it's exciting and it just fully swallows you. And I was like, wow, this is just like first time I'm so excited about art that I don't even love, but all of a sudden I really love it.
Yeah.
So
it brings it to life.
I asked him for a phone number, and then we started dating after that. And the first place he took me to was Guggenheim Museum, where I saw Francesca Woodman's show. And that's the first time I saw her work. And I was just standing there thinking, why I have never tried photography. So that's why I started with self-portraiture, because I was strongly inspired by Francesca. And I've done a lot of self-portraiture in nature the first few years.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I was also quite terrified of just asking other people to photograph them. So it was just so much easier to, take pictures of myself. But, when we've worked over the years with Thomas on my various bodies of work that I've shown all over the world, and, he would not agree with what I just told you, that I feel like I started photography when I saw Francesca Woodman's show in 2012. Well, I was taking pictures many years before that, actually. To really say the full story, I got married in India when I was about 20 something, 22 or so.
I never know this. I did not know this
Well,
part.
I had a friend of a friend
That's
who
cool.
stopped by our place in my little town in Czech Republic, and she was like, well, I have this friend, Indian guy, who's in Vienna, and he needs to get married to be able to stay. So I was like, well, cool. Does that mean I'm going to go to India? So
yeah,
I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I went to India for a month, which was amazing. And for me, that was the first time leaving home for such a faraway place and see such a different culture. So I was totally blown away, and it was fascinating. And I made an art project out of this whole story for my bachelor's degree. It was back then. And, I made some money with it too. So I bought my first cell phone with a camera. And this is 2006 or so. So I had the only one among my friends in my little town. I had a cell phone. It was Sony Ericsson or something with a camera. And I was just taking pictures of everything, all my friends, all my lovers, breakups, just everyday life, anything, selfies. But there was no Instagram. There barely was Facebook. It was maybe MySpace, So you wouldn't post the pictures anywhere. The purpose wasn't to look fabulous and post it someplace. The purpose was to remember the moments for a little bit longer and have an archive of all these memories of, the first loves and breakups. It was very emotional.
Yeah.
So I have
Do you
hundreds,
still have those?
hundreds and hundreds of pictures.
Cool.
I think that's the next project that we'll be putting out.
That's so cool.
And, the pictures have 60 kilobytes, 80 kilobytes.
They're crazy. I mean,
you can print them this big. And I've been actually using some of them for a projection. You can project them pretty big. And it looks very raw. It's very unpolished, raw, lo-fi. It's great.
That's cool.
I would never think of showing those images ever. And the first time Thomas saw them, he was like, oh my God, what is all of this? And I'm like, are you serious? This is just all no way. This is
wow.
But, now having some distance from it being my personal life, there is a lot of power in those images being so real and raw.
Yeah, I find it the distance between you and a photograph, anytime I have a memory of a photograph, I have this one Polaroid picture that I took. I remember I got a Polaroid I was young and or maybe it was someone in my family had it and I took a selfie and I remember um I still have it somewhere, but you know, my eyebrows were so big and like my face like from the flash was super pale and it was just like a crazy photo and I was like young. I mean, I must have been like 11 or you
Uh-huh.
know, in a little bit of like I remember looking at the photo and just being like I'm so weird or something and you know, but like kind of smiling in it. It's a really sweet picture and I love that picture so much. You know, like I
Mm-hmm.
look back at it now and I'm just like I'm so glad that I never got rid of that or like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, threw it away or it was, you know, there was probably so many that I did, but I feel like the distance between like a person, I mean, and a photograph is like the thing that makes you like love it when you're removed from it emotionally or
Yeah. And I
at
think that's
least
the power of images. You
yeah.
know, there is still, even though we are, you know, overwhelmed with lots of images, images are powerful because
Yeah.
they really capture a certain moment. And it's so easy to forget moments.
Yeah.
But once you see the photograph again, you kind of remember, you know?
Yeah,
So,
like the ones that are just like sort of
yeah.
not planned at
Yeah.
all and very and I feel like that's what's really nice about all of your photographs is that they're so like there's so much life and the moment is like you can really feel the moment in them,
Yeah.
you know,
So,
and sort of
all of
there's
this
not
old work that I showed before I went to United States, actually, that's where Thomas thinks I started photography, which he's probably right.
yeah, I
But,
mean,
you know, I was looking at that body of work for the first time. I think it was in 2017 because we were curating a show here in New York and we were showing a little part of it.
mhm.
And at that point, I haven't been home. You know, I left with the one luggage and haven't been home for like, I don't know, 6 years, 5 years. And I missed all my friends, my family, all the places, you know, everything where I just was every day all of a sudden didn't exist for me for 5 years and I couldn't go back home. And I was looking at these pictures and it just felt like a whole different life, like not even mine. It just felt so far away. And it was fascinating to look at it in that way, especially being, you know, kind of locked in a, you know, expired visa situation in US and
Yeah.
looking at your home and what you left behind. It was kind of heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but great in a way.
It was sad.
It was sad, but it was kind of surreal in a way,
Yeah.
very strange.
Was it like
And
reading old
it just almost felt like it couldn't have been my life because at that point, I mean, 5 years living in New York to me feels like 20 years of life because
mhm.
I mean, I'm from a really small town in Czech
Yeah.
Republic, so not that much happens or changes.
Right.
Meanwhile, New York is just constant movement, constant change. You really have to work your ass off. I mean, you know, this is not an easy city. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a great city, but you need to
Yeah.
work it and, you know, hustle and it just seems like life is so much faster here and you get to experience life on just so many different levels than being in your hometown where everything is safe, it's your comfort zone, you know everything, you know, there's no surprises, there's no changes.
Yeah.
It's a whole different speed being in New York. So for me at that point it almost felt like I've been in New York forever and that life wasn't even
Right.
mine. Very strange. But
That is strange because grew up in New York.
did you oh okay, so you
So it's like I
whole different experience for
had
you.
feel like New York has had so many like it's been so many different places for me. Like it's never been the same. Like I've had that feeling of sort of nothing. I don't know that nothing changing, but like I remember I always sometimes I have like memories of walking on streets down here
Mhm.
and having like downtown or anywhere in New York and sort of remembering a feeling of being having such a different perception or like it looked so different or just having a completely different experience which is you know strange sometimes just it's just it feels like the same street could have meant three different things to me, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
I'm always interested what that would be like because I feel like you have, and I think that I wake up every day and like I'm excited for like different, like to like see new stuff, but you have this sort of childlike excitement sometimes, like it feels like it's so refreshing and it's so nice to be around because you really do. It really seems, and it like, I feel the same way when I'm with you, is that you have this ease at like life, like you're just really happy to be doing what you're doing and like to be where you are, and you're just like, it almost feels like fearless, like you're
That's
sort
so
of just
sweet.
like so excited to travel. You're so you doesn't I And honestly that's like my perception. I don't know what you never really know what someone's reality, but I always feel like that's so inspiring to me, and like I love to be around that. I
That's
feel
so
like
sweet. I love
just you
adventures.
love life
And
like a
you know,
lot, and it comes through and you love what you do. And it's really
I am
like,
so feeling so lucky
yeah,
to be able to do what I do.
yeah,
I mean, it wasn't always like that. Like
no,
lots of I think that in my small hometown for a long time, I felt that I'm missing this like constant
mm-hmm,
change and being excited about new things, because I really like challenges and new things and
mm-hmm,
adventures and just whatever. Just like, not having to know that what happens in the next 6, 10 hours is the same thing that happened yesterday and 2 days before and
yeah.
4 days before. And it's always the same,
You were
I
bored
don't
a
like that.
little.
I think so, but in a strange way. Like, I think I was more depressed in Czech Republic than I was once I left.
Yeah, you were
And
at it like,
once I left, I mean, I appeared in a country I've never been to,
right,
didn't know a single person. And, even just going to buy food in a supermarket, I didn't know what's in the box and how it tastes.
yeah,
Everything is just like new. I love that.
yeah,
And now with photography, I get to travel a lot, for exhibitions, for books. We just
yeah.
launched the last book in Tokyo. So we're in
Oh,
Tokyo for
that's
2 weeks. And it's just so amazing to, first of all, be meeting interesting people through photography like you. It's just
cool.
like, that's what's great, that photography connects you with people, but also with places. And you can travel and, go around the world. It's, it's fascinating. It's great. I'm so happy.
And
But
so,
when I came to New York,
yeah.
like when I started being on my own in New York, I had multiple jobs. I was, I didn't really have work visa, so it was a lot of jobs that
What kind of
like I was
jobs?
doing babysitting most of the
Yeah.
time. And I would start at 6 in the morning, so I had to get up at 4:30, go on my bike to the subway, rain, snow, who cares, and get to the work, be there at 6.
Mhm.
Then I worked 5 hours only. I had a part-time job like that, which was great.
Mhm.
And then for the rest of the day, I would assist some other photographers or take pictures on my own and just like,
What were some of the experiences? Do you have like any experience that sort of made you question, like where you were like, I don't know if I can do this. Like this is just
I
too
always worked
intense.
for really nice people. I
Yeah.
was really lucky with great families, but there's certain disappointment with yourself if you are at a point in life when you know that you have a master degree in painting, but you're
Mhm.
not painting anymore. You're not really doing any art seriously enough. And you're in this country where you don't have your family or friends. You
Mhm.
don't know how long you can stay or if you're going to get deported.
That fear
And
must have been
lots of instability
yeah.
that doesn't feel good. So I would always have some money left in a sock drawer just
Hmm.
in case something goes really
Yeah.
shit way and I have to get a plane ticket back home. And you're working a job that is not really what you dreamt of, for sure, and it's just the only way how to survive in the city, and try to see if you can make your dreams come true. But
Wow.
eventually it's about just you know working hard on what you really want and loving it enough that you don't give up even if it's not working out at the beginning.
Yeah.
And just keep doing it, because eventually if you really love it and you do it with passion and love, I think it will always work out,
I agree.
no matter what it is.
What was a moment where you felt like you felt solid in your career? Like where you were like, okay, like I feel like this is sustainable and I don't,
I think That's a hard question. I
Yeah,
think
it's like a
that since
process.
since the first solo show, which I had my first solo show in 2018 in New York, that was a big moment for me. And then I had my first book in 2019, and that all of that and felt like big moments, but essentially it's all little steps
Hmm.
that just you have to keep going. All these like little things that are part of the journey.
Yeah.
But I always kept another job for a long time. And I was working at this great cultural institution. It's called Czech Center.
Hmm.
It's on Upper East Side, and they do cultural, culture events related to Czech Republic. And I worked there for, I don't know, 3 years full time. So when I had my first solo show or the first book, I would be working full time, and then either at night or early in the morning working on my own stuff, just trying to
Right.
make everything happen. So long
Always
work days,
working.
but now it's a different reality, and I'm doing only photography, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's been good. Yeah.
I mean, that's the dream, to do
I
what
think it's
you
hard to
love.
be artists in New York, and I meet with lots of people because I'm now working on another portrait series. So I'm, constantly shooting. But I meet lots of these young kids, they're in their 20s, late 20s, early 20s, and they are artists. And
Yeah.
it's just so heartbreaking to hear how hard it is to survive in the city. The city is just getting so much more expensive all the
Yeah.
time. And art
Yeah.
is a,
It's like a need.
it's a difficult industry. I mean, you need to
Yeah.
invest money in it to be able to make art, and then it doesn't always pay the bills properly.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, my experience and most people that I've spoken to, like when you do feel or you have that need to create, like you don't really have a choice. It's either you do it or you really give up a
Yeah,
huge part of yourself, if not like
which is a shame
yourself,
because I think loving creating just keeps you going for
Yeah.
life. I
And
think
like it's
that's
so much.
such a blessing.
How has social media like helped, or like how has it helped you in your career first?
I think that at the beginning a lot, because I was able to put my work out there, and through that I got in more exhibitions and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which was
You had a
really
lot of
great.
people like reaching out and
Yeah,
connecting.
yeah. But nowadays I use it mainly to communicate. It's
Yeah.
great outlet how to scout people, communicate with people, share
Like a
all the
tool for work.
events, and just communication. But I've been thinking about it. It's crazy how much social media gave us, because before it was so hard to get your work out,
Mm-hmm.
like show your work to people, unless you were printed in a magazine. Well, it's so hard to get,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm now in magazines all the time, but at the beginning, it's not everybody will print your work
Yeah.
unless you are already known. But how you become known if you can't have your stuff in the
Right.
magazines? It's like a circle. But nowadays, you can skip that whole thing. You
Yeah.
can just show your work to thousands of people just putting it on your Instagram. And I think there's a lot of power in
Yeah.
that.
I think that there's so much there's so much power with social media and like so much access, and
Yeah.
you can really present yourself how you want to be
Yes.
presented, like
And you're
no
not
one.
dependent on editor
Yeah.
or some, title of the
Yeah.
article that puts you in different light than you want to be. I mean, there's so much freedom of
Yeah.
just like sharing your work or your passions, whatever that
Yeah,
is.
it can be. I feel like for some people it's like, at least for me, my experience was that like to use it from the beginning as a tool, because it was like I remember social media before I made this decision where I was like, I am posting to share and not to like get people to like me.
Hmm.
And that making that sort of switch in my
Hmm.
mind was like that gave me much more freedom, as opposed to comparing or trying to present myself in a way that didn't feel like true. Because, I think there was, at times, there's like an expectation where you post like pictures of yourself in certain, it's like everything is sort of curated. And for me, like really working to like use it as like a platform, a tool, and not a reflection of me was
Sure.
like this thing that switched. And do you think that have you had a hard time sort of, has there ever been a time where you were comparing yourself to other people or their work, or feeling like
Sure.
you weren't,
I think that your approach is really great, and it would be good if that seems like the healthier way, a healthier approach to
yeah,
social
I mean,
media.
I've had unhealthy
Um,
relationships with social media,
um,
I mean,
could be very destructive.
it can be very
See,
painful at times,
oh, oh
where
yeah, oh
you're
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
people don't like me. And
yeah.
that's definitely a constant like work in progress. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like one day,
Mm-hmm.
but that was sort of my intention needs to align in this space. And like, if I go too far one way, like
Mm-hmm.
I have to pull myself back,
Mm-hmm.
because I found myself being very worried at times about what other people thought, or people, you know, not liking me, and it's
Sure. I mean,
this,
it's all very on a simple basis connected,
yeah,
right? Picture likes, not likes. I mean,
yeah,
there's like subconscious
right.
thing. No matter how hard you try not to see it that
Hmm.
way, it's
It
still
is
like,
that way.
it's crazy. And I'm sure it's. I mean, I'm glad I didn't grow up through
Right.
this, being teenager.
I
It must be
know.
hard. But
Yeah.
I thought about it in a way that, again, I think that for me to develop my photography
Yeah.
practice, it was really great that I was in New York. I didn't know anybody. I
Hmm.
didn't know any art people.
Yeah.
I had few Czech friends who are also au pairs, so no
Yeah.
pressure there. And I only, kept meeting Thomas every weekend to show him my pictures and talk about work. I'm very glad that there wasn't any pressure for me to compare myself with artists and people in New York. So I left the art scene in Czech, and I was here, and I was just experimenting with photography, doing whatever I felt
Yeah.
was working for me, not whatever I felt that I need to make to impress
Hmm.
other people, which I think for that I'm very happy, because
Yeah.
I could have found myself and not try to impress and do work that maybe is not me just to impress others.
Yeah.
So that was good, and I think that's what might be struggle for lots of people, young people working now, because we share the work on Instagram and everywhere, and you constantly comparing yourself to
Right.
others, and even if you don't share your own work, you see so much of other work and you're constantly comparing, which I think can be hard.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I didn't have that when I started photography. But on everyday life, I do get anxiety from social media. It's I constantly try to post more, but then I'm like, don't want to really go through the emotional thing connected to it. So I'm sometimes like, wow, I'm just gonna not do anything for a
Yeah.
few days. But it's a up and down. But I think that I'm not that good with posting, because lots of the projects that I shoot, I'm really excited about when they're happening, but
Hmm.
I can't post it yet because I
Right.
have to wait for it to be released. And then by the time it's released, I'm working on something else.
Yeah.
And I'm always bad of coming back and finding the images and just sharing all of that.
Yeah.
But I
It is a
see,
lot of pressure to sort of keep up,
yeah, it
but
is.
you don't need to do that, because
No,
yeah.
and sometimes like when I'm on vacation, which it's very not that often because I
Yeah.
always work, but I do these like times when I just switch, social media off. It's
Mm.
great.
Yeah.
So much less
Hmm.
pressure, because I mean, you don't have to post, but then you're still thinking, or I feel bad that I didn't, for example, it's like, fuck that.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just a mind
Yeah.
game.
I'm a person who has a lot of to-do lists. I
Yeah.
constantly do stuff. So even if I'm like exhausted and at home and it's 6 p.m. and I really want to sit down and just relax, I still know that there's like multiple other things, and I just keep going,
It's
keep
like
going.
a level of guilt,
I guess.
pressure on yourself.
Yeah,
Like no
yeah.
one's
To
telling
just
you to do
like,
that.
no, no,
Yeah,
no. I just,
same.
yeah.
I'm
And,
like, all right, so what do I do now? It's like, I don't know, sit down,
I know. It's
relax,
like,
like
well,
just
I don't have time for that. There's so many more things
yeah.
on my list. No.
And then I mean, like I struggle with like that sort of managing the
Time off.
expectation that I put on myself.
Yeah, true.
Pressuring myself to continue doing so much, and then, you know, accepting like, okay, like it's time for you to stop, because like you're gonna burn out.
Yeah.
And that's like I mean, especially in the past, few years, because I do struggle with like you know, I'm not someone who just does one thing, I'm
Mhm.
always like over here and then I'm over here and then, my mind is very all over the place all the time. And that it's probably hard for anyone who's working with me closely, I try to I'm like, all right, so how can I be organized today? So you can, it's just this constant trying to rein in all of the
Mhm.
things and the ideas because they're wide and they're, in different areas.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that I wouldn't like to do it any other way. Sometimes I think I'm like, why can't I just be, you know, very linear? And it's like, because I'm not, and I
Yeah.
think that sort of acceptance and no one is pressuring me to do.
I think that could be your strength, and you should just embrace it as that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like been being able to identify the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm
Mhm.
really not good
Mhm.
at and not trying to do it because I can't change. I'm not going to turn
Yeah,
into,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
can't.
How do you relax? I'm
Uh,
bad at relaxing.
yeah, I think with my animals, like once I have
Nice.
the dogs and like my
Mhm.
boyfriend and I'm home and um I don't know, how do I watch a lot of Law and Order, which is weird because it's like these shows about very stressful situations like
I know, in
really
New York, but they're very often based on actual things that happen,
for
which
sure,
is
but it
really,
doesn't scare me at all.
yeah.
Like the thing that scares me is like being in a cabin in the woods where someone's gonna come and kill me. Like if
I
I'm in
have
a
the same thing.
yeah, I'm fine. Like walking down the street 4 o'clock in the morning or something. I'm
You
like,
know why? Because there's always people around that I feel
yeah,
like I can call for help, or some like apartment or
right,
something.
right, right, right,
In the
right,
middle
right.
of the woods, it's
Yes,
just me.
yeah, no, I don't like that
Scary.
at
And
all.
I hate
I
dark.
do not like that. Like the thought of like someone jumping out of like in front of the window, like I'm just like picturing like a man with like an axe.
I know.
I'm like, all right,
Isn't
so
that
when are we
weird?
going back to New York? Like even when I was young, I remember a friend of mine was her aunt like had a place in New Jersey and we would go out and she had like a farm and so
Mhm.
we would go out into the field and like set up a tent and build a fire and be
Mhm.
ready sort of to stay the night over. And I remember they would tell me just to like reassure me, they're like, oh, like, and at any point, if you get scared, we can, the house is right there. You could see the house. And I remember like, in my mind, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was probably like 9:30. I was like, okay, so when are we getting back to the house? Like I'm kind of, I would be scared. I was very, I was like a pretty anxious kid and sort of nervous about I feeling safe
Mhm.
in that way was hard for me, or feeling safe in general I think was
Mhm.
difficult, but um definitely I guess being growing up in the city, like I was much more felt much more safe, walking on the streets of New
Mhm.
York alone, headphones or like it was weird. It was just like I felt safe in that way.
Meanwhile, the city might be way more dangerous
For
in a way because so
sure.
many people here. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel the same
Yeah,
way.
I was talking to someone the other day about like, when I was younger and being in high school, walking through Central Park and late at night with my headphones on, listening to music, like just,
I remember my
so dangerous.
first 2 3 years,
Yeah.
I'll go clubbing in a
Oh, for
tiny
sure.
dress and then walking through Central
Yeah.
Park, shoes in my hand,
Uh-huh.
just nothing on almost,
Same. I mean, oh
3 in
yeah.
the morning. I don't know how I survived,
Same.
like nothing happened. I mean, it's just like now looking back, I'm like,
Crazy.
I was so stupid. How did I not think that that was not
Unmarked,
cool?
jumping in unmarked
I mean,
vehicles. I was like,
yeah.
oh, you're a cab? Sure. Want to take me home?
Yeah,
Like,
and half drunk, so I was
yeah.
just like, who cares? I'm just like,
Yeah. For
walking around.
sure.
Crazy time. I mean.
Um, and so what was how was your family like when you were growing up? Did you feel like you could express yourself artistically? Was that like something that was supported in your family or by your
Hmm.
friends, like by the people that you
I
grew up
think,
with?
yeah, in my family, I'm the youngest one of three daughters. So I'm the little one,
Me too.
whatever that
I'm the
means.
little one as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes
But
little one though is like the response, you're the one
yeah,
that.
but also I probably had the most privilege of like not having to go to bed at 8 p.m. like
Mm-hmm.
my sisters until they were like
Yeah.
15 or so, because my parents gave up at that point, all
Right.
of those rules that my sisters are always like, oh, I couldn't have stayed so long up like you when I was your
Yeah.
age. I'm like, well, whatever.
Sorry.
But yeah. Um, I'm from a family of teachers, so everybody's a teacher in my family, language teachers mainly,
Wow.
which is great. And
Do you speak other languages?
no, Czech and English, but we speak German at home. But I don't really speak that well German, so
I mean, I'm
I
sure it's.
combine, But what sucked about that was that all the other kids when they were at school would have 2 months off in the summer, and then parents wouldn't be home, so they can do whatever. Well, my parents were always home because they were teachers, so no freedom there.
Right.
But
They were everywhere. They were at school and at home.
I know, right?
Was it the same school?
Um,
You went to the school that they
no,
taught at?
my sister did
Yeah.
teach me a couple times. That I had her as an English teacher, but not
Wow.
my mom.
What was that like? Your sister
Well,
was your
because
teacher.
my
Wow.
one is 6 years older and the other one is 12 years older.
Interesting.
Well, and my mom would be originally kindergarten teacher, so I was with her in kindergarten. It's not a good thing because they can't yell that much at the other people's kids, but they can yell at me, right? Because
Right.
I'm a family, so I always got the shit. But no, my family is great, but not necessarily that artistic or putting too much value in it. But maybe I'm just not. Maybe I don't know. Thinking about it, well, my mom told me that when I was working on the portfolio for my college exams to get in, I had to have lots of drawings and stuff. And I remember putting it on the floor in the living room and, getting it ready. And my mom's walking there and saying, "You think you will get in?" And I'm like,
She said that to you?
yeah. It's like,
Oh,
really?
jeez.
But, it's just like, I don't think my mom thinks about it that way. And she didn't mean anything bad with it.
No.
But it's not like, I wasn't brought up like I would say is what I've seen here as the, American upbringing, which is, your parents like support you and tell you a lot that you can do it, which sometimes it's also a little false, I would say. But, in Czech, it was mainly like, well, I don't know, different, just different.
That's like, I mean, maybe think
I think it's a generational thing. I
Yeah.
think that changed for sure. But I think that in US, I've experienced a lot of like support for the kids to encourage them and encourage their self-esteem. It wasn't like that where I was growing up, just because I don't think it's just was like that mindset in the culture overall. Communism just ended when I was 5 years old, and my parents, their whole life was through communist era, which wasn't really what they wanted, but they couldn't change, or couldn't pick. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I'm the only one who studied art, and I think that nowadays it's really crazy to think about it. I mean, I just had a show in my hometown last year for the first time, a big show, and there were some big articles in the newspaper, and I've been on the Czech television, all sorts of stuff. And people started to call my mom, like, people who she doesn't really know much, but like, acquaintances or old friends, and congratulating her on her daughter. And it's so funny to watch my mom being like, I guess she's really proud now, so it's really nice. It's been really sweet. It's been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you do a project with your mom?
I did. My mom hates to be in pictures.
Yeah, same with my mom.
But I'm the only one now who can photograph her. I mean, it's amazing.
Wow.
It's
And what was that like? Was it like a different? Did your relationship change? Did you see her more?
Yeah, I think
like,
that
it was more human, maybe, or
I think that we definitely connected more, and I think that she now understands my work more in terms of, in New York, and we call, I don't know, once a week, once every 2 weeks or so.
Mhm.
And we talk about what she knows, which is, what's happening on the farm, what's happening, what she cooked for lunch, what's happening in the garden, because she's a big gardener. She
So
loves
you grew
that.
up on a farm.
I did, yeah. But then,
Wow.
like, I can't really tell her what I'm doing here, because for her, it's such a different environment that it's hard to imagine in a way,
Mhm.
because it's like, couldn't be more different than what, my hometown is. It's like being here in New York shooting for Vogue. I mean, how do you even
Yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
it's like I can tell her, but it's such a foreign concept for her in a way. So, doing the photo project with her was amazing, because she could see how I work as a photographer, how we work together, through the process. And then I actually had her edit the photos with me to select which ones will be in the exhibition.
Wow.
And, think about the frames, think about how big we want to print it. Do we want to border? Like this whole process, which, I mean, I can share now with her way more, because she has a
Yeah.
much better understanding of what I do. And I feel like I was allowed a little bit closer to her through that, or she allowed me a little bit closer,
Yeah.
which was really sweet. And, my mom has always been inspirational to me, and person that I miss the most from the whole family. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's
She's your mom.
like, but yeah, it's been really fun taking pictures of her. I think that she actually kind of liked it at the end.
Oh yeah.
I would even say.
Wow.
So I take that as a big compliment for, my work.
Well, I think that, I mean, I usually am pretty hard on myself, when it comes to, I think I pick in photos at least, like I'll like pick out the thing, I'm sort of I go into it sort of looking for the thing,
Mhm.
I think it's not abnormal, but the pictures that you took of me are my favorite pictures that anyone has ever taken of me.
Aw,
Like
that's so sweet.
really, I mean, and
I love when you say, "Are we gonna go in the bathroom? Take pictures in the bathroom?
yeah,
in the
I got in the
bathtub?"
bathtub.
Yes.
My like favorite place is like the bathtub, and for whatever
It's a
reason,
very safe space.
it's my safe space. It is like the place that I feel like the most calm, the most like if I'm, it's so weird, because it's not like a place that, I don't know. It's not many people I invite into the bathtub with me, and I'm like, let's go to the bathtub. Like, it's so weird that
I love that.
I think that I felt like you could like, I was like, this is sort of such a rare opportunity to be sort of seen so clearly, and like, I felt like that really comfortable with you. So I think that's, I mean, that's like a real, it's a real gift to have that ability to do that. I'm sure like I obviously have not, but even seeing you on projects that projects that I was working on that you were hired to work on, I see the way that you interact with people and how calm they are. And it's like, that's a huge gift. I mean, that's a
appreciate
real,
it, because
like,
I see it only from my perspective. I never
right.
really see it from like outside. But like what you're saying, that's great, and I'm super
Yeah,
happy.
I'm sure I'm
because,
not the first person to tell you that, though.
no, no.
Like, I mean,
But it's I think I have this like I think I'm a little bit oversensitive to other people
yeah,
and their comfort. And I take my big responsibility. It is my big responsibility to make them comfortable when they're working with me.
right.
Just for the fact that they are so gracious of letting me photograph them, and that from the beginning, I was so terrified of taking pictures of other people, for the reason that I just felt like, it's a big responsibility
yeah.
that they're, willing to be in front of my camera and I'm capturing them. And, I always felt very, in depth for that kind of to every person that I photographed. And for that, I need them to be happy, be comfortable. And if, that makes me feel comfortable.
Right.
Otherwise I am like, I get stressed, which
Yeah.
doesn't really happen actually. I've been always had, really good interactions with people, but it's very important for me. I've never been that kind of photographer who just comes to people, makes them uncomfortable and shoots and, kind of predatory, takes a picture. And even if it's amazing shot, I can't do that. I need the consent and just kind of feeling like the
Mm-hmm.
person is good with it, connected with me, and just
Yeah.
ready
Have you
for all
ever
of that.
felt like, has there ever been a situation where you just like, it didn't work? Where like the person was not connecting and you were just like,
Not really. I don't know. Sometimes some connections are just much stronger than
yeah,
others.
like
That's
you
for
work
sure.
through it no
Yeah,
matter
and
what.
some people it's just like immediate click, and some other people it takes a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think eventually it's always, worked for me. There was a moment though where I felt like I should have taken a picture, even though I wasn't sure if I can, which is when I photographed Kim Gordon in LA, and it was for this magazine called Suited, and it was great. It was for the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did the shoot, and everything was great. And we had a great chat. She shared lots of cool stories from old New York and
Yeah.
stuff. But then later, she invited me to a concert that she was playing in LA. So I went to see her performance, and it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was, it was, it was just like mind blowing and
Wow.
like really like aggressive music in a way, like very like big presence, aggressive
Mm-hmm.
presence in the space. So many of the young people left because it actually was a little hard to take. But I love that she was just like
Wow.
so ballsy with just filling the space with the music. Anyway, I then went to see her backstage in the gallery, in the back of the gallery. And I walk in and I see that there's like blood spots on the floor. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, what's happening? And then all these people from the gallery were freaking out, running around. And I walk like in the bathroom there and I see Kim Gordon sitting on the toilet, bleeding from her nose, paper towels everywhere, full of blood. Everywhere, paper towels full of blood, 3 people around her. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, oh my God. And that would be such a good picture.
Wow.
But I just wasn't sure if I can take
Why?
it.
What happened? She got punched in the face.
She was really tired and she walked real
Tired.
fast into a glass
Oh my
that she
God.
didn't see in a glass door and hit her face hard and started just bleeding. So after that, she was laying on a couch for, I don't know, an hour or so with ice bag on her head.
Oh
And we are
my
just
God.
chatting. And I was like, well,
You were
at
just
least I have a
chatting.
really good, story and had
You
so
have a
much time to
visual.
chat with, Kim
my
and just spend
God.
time together. And then she's laying on the couch and she's like, I bet you wanted to take a picture there, right? And I'm like, oh, so bad.
Oh my amazing. That's
But then I took a picture of her afterwards, just with the little bloody hair and swollen lip and swollen nose. And it was
wow.
nice. But,
You have to like
there are moments that
maybe
you
one day
just
you draw it or
remember,
yeah. I mean,
rather than photograph. And that's great
yeah.
too.
The experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least you have that like you can describe it.
Yeah.
I
true.
have the image. I mean, maybe even like a crazier image
Maybe
in my head.
than the reality, right?
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's true.
yeah.
It's true.
Now I'm thinking of all the places that you should go where people are like, like a emergency room.
Yeah.
Go sit in the waiting room, just wait. Be like
portraits,
it's a
broken
little-
arms.
I guess it's a little invasive, but
Maybe.
what would be your dream place? Like, think, I mean, this is, a pretty cliche question, but now that we're talking about bloody emergency rooms, like what would be a place that what's a place that you really want to photograph or a situation or something like?
It's a hard question.
I know.
I think it would have to be about young people. I think for me, and this is all totally doable, it's just one has to do it. Some like, maybe some like summer festival someplace where all the young people go and just get themselves free and loose and in love and dance and capturing that kind of energy.
Yeah, I feel like
know.
that is a huge theme in your work is like capturing youth and
yeah, I like that.
freedom
And I think there's
people's...
all that. And I love people in love.
You love you do.
It's like such a special energy if you find a couple that is in love. I mean, it's nothing else like it.
Yeah, that's so sweet. It's like, it's nice that I feel like even more now, artists are embracing like that, you know? I mean, when I was younger, I always felt like I think there was a lot of sadness for me growing up just inside me. I was very like angsty and sad. I was very emotional, and I think that, you know, a lot of that had to do for me with like um drugs and alcohol, you know, like
Mhm.
or you know, using that as a tool to deal with this whatever feelings I had of not I don't know, you know. I mean, I think there was a lot of feelings and feeling so like sure that being an artist meant that I was in pain, you know, and not being able to being scared to like let
Mhm.
go of that like dark part.
Mhm.
And you know, I think I it's actually funny because like the more I let go of that and sort of have found this like peace and a level of like contentment and
Mhm.
happiness is when I'm the most clear to like create work that I'm actually really like, you know, proud of or that I feel represents like what's going on inside me. You know, I think that there was a lot of the stuff that I created when I was younger. It holds like a special place. Like I look
Mhm.
back, but there's so much pain in it and it's like honest, but it was just an explosion of that. You know, it wasn't
I wonder if that's kind of like a process of, when I look at my early paintings, when I, kind of started to thinking that I want to be an artist
mhm.
and all of that, it was also coming from a like a sad,
Yeah.
depressing, apocalyptic kind of inside
Yeah.
space, lots of like
Maybe it's growing up.
bald-headed self-portraits. And I wasn't even bald before, like not I didn't shave my head, but I was like always looking half dead in all my paintings and stuff. I wonder if it's just a period of youth
Mm.
where you are dealing with all of that and just channeling it through the art.
Yeah.
And then, you have to find your way through it because you cannot forever be obsessed about the same things as you are when you're 16, I
Yeah.
mean, you grow as an artist as well. And I
Yeah.
wonder if that, if,
I mean, it is interesting because like growth in itself is like a painful experience. Like
sure,
anytime that you're pushed to sort of go to another level of like,
out of your comfort
yeah,
zone,
when you're peeling like
growing
another
up.
layer off or
Yeah.
growing more, it's painful. And, you know, I mean, I think this is a pretty obvious statement, but you know, it's just the light goes on and it's sort of like this period of such intense growth.
Hmm.
I don't know that it was presented to me in that way where it was like growing is painful, you know,
Hmm.
that being allowed to, in hindsight, I see that. But when I was younger, I don't think
Hmm.
there was much, no one was really being like, oh, no, it's normal that you're painful. It was more just like, don't be in pain. You don't, you know, you don't have any reason, you know,
Sure,
but I think that the reason itself is just that you're growing,
sure,
you know, and
sure.
that's,
And trying to find yourself.
yeah,
And
and figuring
that's,
out who you are.
yeah, it's a lifelong process, but certainly more painful when you're younger
Yeah,
than
it's
when you're
pretty
older.
quick. Like it's like rapidly,
Yeah.
you know, I think it slows down a little bit
Mhm.
when you're
Yeah. Well, I also, I felt
adolescence.
a loss. I felt lost a lot through
Yeah.
my youth. I think that was, uh, I don't know. I think everybody goes through it. But my dad died 2 days before my 16th birthday. So that
Wow.
certainly was unexpected and traumatic situation, which we never really talked too much about in my family. So all of a sudden, it was my mom and my three sisters. All the girls left, and
Wow.
my dad's business fell on my mom, and she had to deal with it, and she had not much idea because she never was in charge of it before. And
What was the business that he was
we had
in?
a where's our farm, so there was lots of offices, and he
Wow.
was renting offices to people and just basically being manager of the building. But my
And
mom,
running a farm.
yeah, my mom didn't know how to do any of that. She was a teacher, so all of a sudden she was doing two things.
Wow.
But he died unexpectedly, and I have never seen him dead because we had a closed casket at the funeral, which, I don't know, looking back at it, I think it maybe have been better for me to see him the last time,
Mm.
because for a long time, I think I struggled with myself just kind of accepting that he's dead and what it really means, and like the scope of the fact that he's never coming back. But then, I mean, I was depressed, really, I would say. They should probably
Yeah.
have sent me to a psychologist, but none of that is or was at all accepted in Czech back then. Nobody did that,
Right.
unless you lived maybe in Prague, in the capital, but in my little town, no way. So I didn't talk to anybody for years, actually, kind of.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
And my family didn't really talk about it. It was quite depressing. But eventually, a few years later, me and my sisters and my mom somehow ended up talking, close to Christmas. And we realized that we all had the exact same dream of him coming back home, knocking on the door, having a sailor striped shirt, and saying that he wants to come back.
wow.
I was just like, I mean, I had this nightmare of, I don't know if it's a nightmare or, I was very emotional every time I woke up from this dream. So for me, it was kind of a
It was
nightmare, I guess.
recurring.
It was a recurring dream that I had for years. And it felt so real. It's like that moment when you wake up from your dream and it still lingers for like hours.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
feel like this heaviness from it. And it's like, oh my God.
Like
So
it was like you're exhausted from it.
just
Haunted.
just really like hard.
Yeah.
But once we talked about it with my sisters, and I realized that they all had the same dream, which is insane, it stopped. So I guess some talking in family is always a good thing.
Yeah,
I would
it's not a
encourage
bad
that.
thing. Yeah, it's definitely.
But that really, it shaped my youth a lot, because I hated celebrating my birthdays for
Wow.
years. And it's since 16, I kind of dealt with this trauma that, I mean, eventually everybody goes through. But for me, it was just a little difficult timing. So I think that shaped me a lot, certain way too.
How did it, like, because you grew up in a small
Mhm.
town, were other people very weird? Was it weird to go to
See,
school? Like, did people treat you
mm,
differently than they had
well,
before? Or were
I
they like,
remember it's so funny how certain things you remember like
yeah.
they happened yesterday, right?
Mhm.
Meanwhile, it's like probably nobody else from the situation remembers it.
Yeah.
But for me, the next day I went to school, and I had history class, and I was called to go like to the front and by the teacher, ask questions, and I had to answer. That's
And
how
they
we
knew that this had just happened?
Yeah, and she gave me failure because I didn't know anything, because I didn't have time to study. And I was like, wow, this is really mean, actually, I thought. And then
Yeah.
my mom, so I remember that situation being just like,
Traumatic. Yeah,
like,
that's pretty
and
horrible.
I always hated, I used to be really shy. So I
Yeah.
hated the way it works in Czech Republic at school is, if you have a subject and throughout the year, everybody gets called out at least once or twice
It's my
to
it used to be
stand
my
in
biggest
front of the
fear.
whole classroom in the front. And
Yeah.
the teacher asks you random questions about the subject, and you have to answer,
Wow.
right? Correctly, preferably.
Yeah.
And I hated that because I hated talking in front of the rest of the
Yeah.
classroom. It's like 30 kids, and,
That was my biggest fear growing
right?
up.
Talking in front of people.
I mean, it was like I feared it more than
Same.
anything, like death. I was like, I'd rather, I
Same.
mean, it was, and I think a lot of people have that experience, but there's so much shame
Mhm.
in being scared to put yourself like in front of people.
It was
I mean,
much worse at the art school, because how it works at the art school in Czech Republic is that at the end of the semester, you have your pictures on the wall,
mhm.
and whoever wants to come from the whole school, and then a board of teachers is critiquing you in front of the work. And you have to talk about it, tell them what it is. First of all, nobody taught us or practiced with us how to talk about it. So you're
Mhm.
just put on spot, which sucks. I mean, they should at least teach you like
Yeah.
how to, talk about your work. I mean, it's a process. It's not like you learn it out of the blue. It's all learning experience.
Yeah,
You
like
have to practice. And then they would all be extremely judgmental and mean.
Oh my God,
Like
that's terrible. Really? Wow.
mean. So that was kind of I always got sore throat before it. Like it was my like fear illness was angina. I don't know what do you call it in English, but like, really bad sore throat. I was a couple times in hospital with it just from fear. So once I left Czech Republic, believe it or not, I didn't have any of that.
Wow.
It disappeared. It was all of like
That is
fear.
just like, I mean, I had a very similar feeling with speaking in public. It was horrifying to me.
How about now? Still?
It's definitely gotten much better, but I think that has to do with sort of, start learning about getting to know yourself and not being so like, like no one, you can't like flick me over really, like I
Because
think,
you're also talking usually about things that you're passionate about,
right,
or
and
you
that I
know your
really
stuff.
know about.
Yeah.
I didn't really
Yeah.
know what I was talking about, and it was sort
Same.
of just
And that's when it's really hard.
it's terrifying.
Yes.
And people, it's
Traumatizing,
like just
really.
feeling the like it felt so terrifying, and everyone was looking at you and judging you, and like
I felt like I'm gonna die every
I'm
single
gonna die.
time.
I thought I was gonna
I
die.
know.
And sometimes,
Same.
people would be like, "You'll be fine once you're up there." I
It's
would
like,
not
no.
be fine once I was up there. I'd be like,
Can't breathe
I
anymore.
can't breathe. I'd be like telling everyone, I'm like, I'm very nervous right now. And they're like, and I'd be like, I remember I had a history teacher actually in middle school. It must have been 7th grade. And we had to reenact a scene from Animal Farm. And the characters in the book were pigs. So we had to get up. And like I was so terrified of even getting up. And we had to write a speech and make the speech and act like we were pigs. And we had to oink and like snort during it. And I was just like, this has to be like illegal. Like that's not, and I was just like, I'm so terrified right now. And then just sort of, it's one of the scariest things I remember, just being like,
but I think that
a nervous pig is like not.
All these moments are great for overcoming them.
Yeah.
And then just like every single time you do something that you are terrified of,
You don't die.
No. And it gets easier and easier over time. For me, it was about practice. It got easier with time. But maybe also with age, actually. It might be It might be connected.
I don't know. I think practice, because I feared it so much that I would like do anything to get out of it. And just like being like, all right, it's not really that like, it's not that big of a deal. It's like if I mess up, like, what am I messing? It just felt like so much pressure.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that it was terrifying. But yeah, that I think also being put on the spot in those ways, like when someone's being mean, it's
in front of other people.
You can feel it. It's not,
Well, yeah, it's very personal. At that point, it is personal.
Yeah. I know. They're like, don't take it personally. It's like, well,
nah.
Feels pretty personal to me. Wow, that's it's amazing, you've overcome a lot to like, humans do.
But, I guess, but it was still, yeah, I think it's like, life is never easy, but I think that's the beauty of it, and one has to just take it like that. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed with life, because I don't think it's ever easy.
No.
But I guess that's the beauty of it too.
You just need to learn how to like take things as they come.
Yeah, and enjoy things. And, it's my forever question is how to be happy. And I think that's something that one has to work on. And I think it changes through life.
Yeah.
But I somehow have ended up in conversations with people lately who, are close friends with very successful older artists who are like, being in their position is my dream, being like that respected and successful. And I keep hearing that they're not really that happy, which is something that I'm like, wow, what is really the important thing in life? Being successful and respected in what you do and what you love, still might not bring all the happiness to your life. So, I've been, thinking over all of these kind of things.
And are those people, do you think there's like an attachment to the past or something? Like, is it
it's a lot of art people that I've been hearing about, and it's or these specific people I have in mind are in art, but I think that the key to happiness in life just lies in relationships, and I think it doesn't matter what you do, it's relationships that
yeah, like connecting with people.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
Friends, friends, family, partner. I think that is where eventually is the fulfillment coming from, to make you feel wholesome and happy.
Yeah. And not trying to make
Which is
connections where they're not.
Sure, which is something that's really hard to work on once you're chasing career and putting all your time into like, you know, doing that. But my focus has been now a lot on, you know, strengthening my friendships, which I think, you know, it's important.
It is.
Yeah.
You have to make time for that.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I struggle making time and like feeling so sort of tired from like the work, and then just wanting to be,
and then everybody else works too. I mean, you know, we live in the city.
Yeah, everyone is working so hard all the time, and it's like,
and now even online with pandemic, everybody works all the time because you can even work when you're at home, or no matter what it is. You know?
Yeah, and you sort of feel like if you're connected over in the internet or Instagram or whatever, like that you're, you know, it would be interesting to see without the phone, without like Instagram, how isolating, you know, like how the reality of how alone you.
Sure. And I think that the connections over social media are just not it. It's not, it doesn't do it. It's good, but it doesn't do it fully.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I think that is definitely something I need to work on, for sure.
I set it for myself as a goal for 2023.
You did. You really.
Friendships.
So when are we rescheduling our dinner?
Soon.
Like tomorrow, like next Tuesday.
I keep hustling about the
next
dinner.
Tuesday.
Dude, I'm doing now like dinner for friends like 2 times a week at least.
Wow.
I've been like
Have you been doing that?
Yeah, I've been.
What is that? Has that been really?
It's great. You know, there's so many people in New York that I love. So many. I mean, this is a city of, you know, I have my closest friends in Czech Republic. My 3 best friends are there. And that's a whole different relationship, but we also known each other for, you know, since we were like 16. But for New York is a place for me where I feel like I know so many people, but I would like to get to know many of them much more. So that's what I'm, you know, trying to do. And people in New York are fascinating. There's so many great creative people. And, you know, you do dinner together and it's just like, every time I'm blown away. I feel like, you know, I know the person, and then I get to spend 2 hours over dinner and I'm like, wow, you actually do all of this and that. And it's great. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I think that was the main in doing this, you know, like really.
Sure. It's your version of my dinner.
Yeah. I think it is. It's like really like shutting off all of everything and like hearing someone talk about their story and like how, you know, I think it's been really, it's so nice. Like people, you really get to know things about people and like how people sort of, I don't know, like everyone has such a different, it's so cool.
Yeah.
I just learned a lot of things about you that I did not know. You know,
like that I got married in India.
I did not know that. I didn't know, you know, I actually did not know. I was like, I had never heard you speak about your dad. And you know, it's very cool. Thank you. It's awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Can't wait to do it again.
Over dinner.
Yes. Next week. But yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.